When you're basing someone doing an act based on their color, it's the same logic as basing on someone's height. It sounds stupid straight away as soon as you say it. Someone that's a midget, I don't know if I want to use midget, I don't know if you're allowed to use midget nowadays, but someone short, before I hurt someone's feelings, but someone short does a robbery, are we now gonna start hating all short people? Or someone tall does a heinous crime, are you gonna start hating tall people? It doesn't make sense. So why would you then hate someone who's black or white doing a particular crime and then base it on all of those people are bad now? That's how illogical it is. Bismillah and welcome to another episode of The Bridge. Today you have me and the big boss himself, Imam Shak. And many topics to discuss. There's been some things happening. Obviously the most latest news is a devastating issue with regards to the 3 kids that were stabbed by this young, I don't even know what his name was, but this young man that killed them. And obviously the backlash after that, Imam, as we know, there was, the riots that happened. There was the backlash from other Muslim communities who came out against the riots as well. So we want to touch up on that, why it happened, maybe the history of racism, what's happening, and get into a few of those. So obviously, I'm sure you've heard about what happened. And maybe touch on that. What do you know about the kid that done it? And a little bit about, the reasons.
The amazing, not amazing, but I'd say the strange thing is he wasn't an immigrant. He's a British. Yeah, so that's, kind of like important to mention. Why? Because the riots were against migrants and immigrants. This kid was British. The kid was church-going, in the choir, family are Christian.
These things that came out after?
Yeah, like very soon. Why is a mosque being targeted and so on? So there's a lot of things in terms of that came out, which kind of like makes you reflect on, say, why were the far right then straight away targeting the Muslims, targeting mosques and so on, or targeting even migrants and so on. Yeah, but of course, as you mentioned, it's a sad thing in terms of three girls were kind of like murdered in that. Something that we as Muslims, of course, don't wish that for anybody. And of course, in the deen itself, Allah Ta'ala, there's the ayat Surah Al-Ma'idah, very famous one, the one who kills a soul, it's like unjustly, it's like killing all of humanity. The one who saves a soul, it's like saving all of humanity. But again, I think there's issues of racism, issues which I think maybe some are manipulating and putting communities against one another. But inshallah, we can have that discussion.
If we go on that, obviously we know there's many people that jumped out straight away, one being Tommy, one being even Andrew Tate, and one being Nigel Farage. All of these came out saying it was an immigrant, it was a Muslim, some of them said. I don't think it was Andrew Tate that said that, but I was listening to a conversation of Andrew Tate and Piers Morgan with regards to the point you made about the immigration. And Piers Morgan pushed him and said, look, you said he was an immigrant, but the guy wasn't an immigrant.
So an undocumented migrant decided to go into a Taylor Swift dance class today and stab 6 little girls. That's right, somebody arrived in the UK on a boat. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody knows where he's from.
He wasn't a migrant. He was born in Wales. His parents were legal immigrants from Rwanda. So he's not a migrant. He's somebody born in Wales, born in the United Kingdom.
He was born here. And then his pushback was, it depends on what you define as immigrants. So his argument is, if you was born here, your parents were immigrants. So in essence, you're an immigrant. That's his argument.
So look how silly it is now. So where do you stop? Because Pierce has got the better of him. He's now trying to be defensive. Okay, so let's say that kids, would they be immigrants? Or their kids, how far do you go down? Because he wants to kind of defend what he has said. It doesn't make sense. He's becoming defensive now.
Yeah, to be fair, further down in the questioning, he asked him straight up, he said, look, are you saying someone who's been born here is not British? Straight up. And then he started a bit and he goes, you know what? My opinion is he is British. But in the beginning, he was saying he's an immigrant. So there is a lot of, how do you want to call it? Misunderstanding probably of what it means to probably be an immigrant. And I think the racist aspects of that is for some people, it doesn't matter how many years you've been here. If you are black, if you are Asian, you are not an English or a British person, regardless of how you put it, 2nd generation, 5th generation. I think for some people, it does not matter when you came, as long as you're not the same color as them, because they don't have an issue when it's Ukraine. No one has an issue when it's Ukraine and we're making, you know, houses you can share, and can you share a house? And there was that whole push about different people sharing houses for them. That was never the story then. So I think there is definitely that issue of, it's not about the person, it's about the skin color for some people, regardless of when they was born, here, second generation, fifth generation. I think that's for some people, that's the case.
Yeah. I think I would agree with you in a sense. Look, some, because what we don't want to kind of like also, how do you say, get involved into just tarnishing everyone with the same kind of like brush. Just before Salatul Asr, just before after Salatul Asr today. So a lady called. She's from a local church, and she said, "Look, I'm with you. Yeah, why the rise of Islamophobia? Why are they targeting mosques?" So you can see, English lady, yeah, from Lewisham, is not agreeing with what is happening and so on. So I think there are those many. And, you know, we've been to the protests. We've been to the protests where non-Muslims have come up, the majority of non-Muslims coming, defending the Muslims and defending and then being white English, defending the mosque, defending Islam, defending, you know, the Muslims and so on. So that element is there. The other thing was in terms of the issue of why did they spin it straight away to Islam? Yeah. You know, family were Christian. Guy was a Christian. How comes, okay, are you going outside churches?
They said it was a Syrian person at first.
Syrian?
Yeah, they said it was a Syrian refugee. And they even had a name. I forgot the name that they said. But they had some name. They made up a name. I don't know how. It was maybe AI generated. I don't know. Yeah, they come up with a name and everything. So another question then becomes is like, where... Because remember, the news also pushed it to a certain degree. So it's not like they said, oh, this is what's being said and it's false and it's actually this person. They just put up, this is what most people are saying, meaning you're just transferring what people are saying and not denying that fact. So the question then becomes for Nigel Farage, Tommy Robertson, all of these people, where did they derive this information from? And then once you derive the information and you put it out there, what is the consequences of that? Because for example, now, I forgot all of these people that's been arrested, but there was a lady that got arrested.
Facebook post.
And she said about burn them all in the house, including in the mosque, including the men or whatever. So now that woman, for that quote, she's been given 2.5 years, 3 years. What happens now to say an Andrew Tate, a what's it called, a Nigel Farage, a Tommy Robertson? Because in essence, you're inciting. Her one is clear cut. She's saying, look, go and do this. Their one is a bit more misinformation, but with that misinformation, riots occurred. So I know obviously some people are going to push back and say, oh, but you should be allowed to say anything. But are you really allowed to say anything without the evidence being there?
Yeah, I mean, look, key point here you mentioned, like the media. Muslims and Islam has been demonized.
Scapegoats.
Yeah, for years now. And a lot of the names you have mentioned have been mentioning that. Do you understand? And that's been going on for years. So when a mosque gets taught, I don't think they expected it to be like this scale. That's when the media now suddenly, they've changed their tone. They're against Tommy, they're against this and this and this. But okay, for the last few years, what has been happening? So they play a big part in people's perception of Muslims and Islam. And they also need to be called out and made accountable. Power. There are tabloids, millions of people read daily. Yeah, it affects their kind of like, I was mentioning on the Jummah khutbah. Yeah, I was reading this. I actually read this. The Pentagon has a department, a media department or entertainment department within the Pentagon. You know, the Pentagon, that's the Ministry of like Department of Defense for the American government. But this department funds Hollywood, movies in Hollywood, on TV.
So perception in essence.
Why are you going to fund? Because look, that shows it's an agenda. Yeah, so turning the public against Islam and the Muslims, there are factors which are funding this to make this happen. So they're not just free of all of this. Suddenly now, because it's gone to this scale, wait a minute, we're going to turn against the far right. But you know what? You also played a part.
If you move a bit forward now, obviously some people have been arrested. What is the angle with regards to when it comes to, obviously some people done the beating up and all that stuff. Some people just out there, you could say they were just part of the gang. So how do you differentiate? Because some people just say they were just out of anger, but they wasn't racist or anything like that. But you're with a group that is also name calling and hitting cars and going to mosques and burning things. How you differentiate between someone who's, say, racist and someone who's in a group that's racist? Because you said some, I hear what you're saying about some. You want to differentiate between
100%.
racist, clear cut, and people who might be maybe prejudiced or maybe you can say nationalistic to a certain degree. How are you differentiating that if they're all in the same group doing the same thing?
Okay, I want to come to that in a moment, Abdul-Lateef, but I want you to speak about, because something that you mentioned at a protest, and I think even the teacher that you mentioned outreached you. Yeah, because the key thing you were mentioning there is about education. And how people who are racist, that judge a person because of their skin color and shade, are just ignorant. I want you to, it's important for the viewers to hear that, and then maybe we can take it from there, basically.
Yeah, so obviously what I was just saying on the
rally outside the mosque,
yeah, the rally, the key point I was making is how illogical it is to be racist. Because when you're basing someone doing an act based on their color, it's the same logic as basing on someone's height. It sounds stupid straight away as soon as you say it. Someone that's a midget, or I don't know if I want to use midget, I don't know if you're allowed to use midget nowadays, but someone short, before I hurt someone's feelings, but someone short does a robbery, are we now going to start hating all short people? Or someone tall does a heinous crime, are you going to start hating tall people? It doesn't make sense. So why would you then hate someone who's black or white doing a particular crime and then base it on all of those people are bad now? That's how illogical it is. And obviously, then we went on further to say, what is the solution on that? And that's where I mentioned when I first came here that I didn't speak no English. So the fact that I didn't speak English and I came from Somalia, and Somalia is mainly, if you want to look at color-wise, black people, not mainly only black people. There was never a white person I personally saw. And then you come to a country where it's all white people. So you've just moved from literally one place to another, whole different place with different cultures. And there's a level of fear in that. You don't understand these people. I remember seeing like veins in people's faces. I'm thinking, these people look weird. White people, you can see the gray, like the green line in their face. So for me, that's like, at that young age, that was a weird kind of thing. But as you start to learn, as you start to go to school, as you start to have interactions with these people, they're no different to you. They're just another color skin, different cultures. And, I had a teacher there that was called Miss Bowen. She's the one that taught me English. She taught me many things, taught me to reading and things like this. And so the key I was making is the solution to these people's ignorance is learning. Interact with people, read. The funny thing is a lot of these racists actually travel. They travel, they go to Spain, Marbella, all of these kind of places. So you see different cultures.
You're not really mixing with people, even when you go there.
It's an angle. Probably they go there and just stick to their own groups. And I think they made a comedy show about what they do when they go to other countries. But my point is, traveling, seeing people, understanding people is the solution to your racism, because you will see people. And sometimes, look, another pushback is, I was born in Africa, but I never disliked other colors even when I came here. It wasn't like I don't like you. I might not understand you.
Yeah.
I don't dislike you. And so the question becomes, why do you dislike another color, bro?
But this is where, that point I was trying to make is where it's been spun. Even Allah knows best. But I think these guys have been manipulated to hate. Yeah, there's powers out there and agendas to just divide communities. And of course, from up London's a bit different. But up north, when they're not even mixing. So you've got probably Asian communities separate from kind of like the white English communities. So already that education through engagement, through talking is not taking place. Then you've got the media putting their spin in. Both sides being manipulated. Take an example as in Lewisham now. How many of our brothers and sisters are white brothers and sisters? We mix, we're okay. When we've had rallies and protests, how many non-Muslims, white non-Muslims have come to defend the mosque and the Muslims? Meaning those barriers, because there's a lot of what? Education, you're mixing, you're talking, and so on. So I think that's a key factor in, the riots.
Yeah.
Education.
I think education is one of them, but at the same time, it's also, as so-called immigrants, maybe our argument for the so-called racist is that, for example, Luton, or Bradford or some areas like these, there's a lot of negative things done by so-called immigrants. So there'll be some people who've come from particular areas and they might do some bad things. And so what happens is, it shouldn't, because it goes back to my original point about short and tall and things like this. It shouldn't, but it does. This person's from Pakistan and they've just done this and that. That means all Pakistani people are bad. This person is Somali. They're drug dealers. That means all Somalis are bad. But then at the same time, bro, white people are pedophiles. I'm not going to say white people. A lot of white people are known to be pedophiles. We're not going to say what all white people are pedophiles. Do you get what I'm trying to say to you? So that's their kind of pushback. Their pushback is, well, if you come and live in Luton or Bradford, you're going to see a lot of these Muslims doing a lot of bad things. And so that's where our pushback to those kind of things is, yes, our people as well, Muslims, other cultures that come to this country need to come with etiquettes and manners as well. You can't go to another man's country and then do badness, do certain things. It doesn't justify their racism. I'm just putting it here though. You've gone to another person's country, they let you in, then be part of that society, do goodness. Don't be part of the problem for them to make you an excuse to do their racism. That's the only pushback I would say.
I mean, look, again, where does that come from? Ignorance, lack of education. One person, let's say one white person, one black person, one Asian person, one Chinese, 2, 10, 20, 30. Are you going to kind of like tarnish the whole, ethnicity? No. Those 10, those 100, those 200, they've done it. Yeah, Muslims, what's the population of Muslims now? We might be 6 or 7% in UK. What, every single Muslim in their millions is like this? Of course not true.
It's a very small percentage.
Same with anybody else. A Christian does bad. You don't tarnish the whole Christian community. The other thing, I like your point, because I do feel, and you know what, I address these topics on Jummah, as you know. And the reason is, I don't think we take ownership of our own mistakes. Yeah? So meaning in those areas specifically, Allah knows best for my, you could say, little research, little reading. Muslims control the drugs now. How can a Muslim be, this one, it never makes sense with me. Even though brothers try and justify it, no, you're old school, this and this. No, I will never accept it. Because it's the worst thing a Muslim can do, sell drugs and destroy a community and a society. But in those areas, Birmingham, Bradford, Luton, Muslims are controlling the drug trade. Why? How comes? Why are you doing this? And of course, others will look at it and say, look, you're Muslims. I can understand. It might be Asians or non-Muslims. Fine. That's not really, my connection with the Muslim people. But Muslims who names are Muhammad, names Abdurrahman, Abdullah, and you're doing this, you should know it's haram, and you should know it's a major sin. So that, it's an important point.
I think that's kind of that's what they lock onto. Look at all of these, what they said in what's that place? Is it Rochdale?
The grooming gangs.
So they're gonna say a lot. But you know what? Loki done a good
discussion on it.
Yeah, he done a good discussion the other day, and he was pointing out whoever done that research based on, I think they said about 125 men who done this grooming, and it was specifically Asian people that they was looking at in the research. But if you actually done another census and said how many, not just pedophilia, but how many sexual insults or sexual indecency and all of this was done in that particular area, I think he said it was a couple of 100,000 for that 1 year, times that by however many years since it's happened, he said it would be millions. And that's not Asian people. That would be white people. So it's easy to select a small group and say, these are what people are doing in Rochdale and they're the Asian people. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because you're being selective with the statistics. Where did you find it from? Who done it? How many people did you, go through these numbers and choose? So that was a good point he was making. But
again, on that point as well, I mean, we as Muslims should be saying, and must be saying, it shouldn't be any Muslim doing it anyway.
100%.
You understand?
It shouldn't be one.
Why are we then defending, well, you know what, it's actually less than the white population or another population? No.
Shouldn't be doing that.
You have a moral guidance coming from Allah Almighty, letting you know sex outside marriage is haram. Let alone, you're grooming and it's young girls. Come on. That can't be, you understand, a Muslim getting involved in these things. So that, again, I think it's important for us to push back and educate the Muslim community. Should not be happening.
So moving on forward a bit now, obviously, we are where we are with regards to that. what is or what should be the reaction for the Muslims?
Mhm.
Because obviously now you do have many Muslims in other areas, and even non-Muslims, some groups, and it's turning into a defensive, let's go out looking for them, not to beat them up necessarily, but to show a force of, we're here.
Mhm.
How is the Muslim meant to do with that? Not even just Muslims, how is other black people and Asian people who are not Muslim? Because remember, they're not just against, races are not just against just one particular color or religion. It's whoever doesn't look like them, they usually have a problem with.
Yeah.
So how do people now then fight against them without, falling into issues?
I think you mentioned it at the protest, and I think the councillor mentioned it as well.
Oh, she said about Muay Thai. Is that a
She
Muay
said
Thai
she's
lady?
learning Muay Thai.
Yeah.
The councillor said she's learning Muay Thai. So yeah, but I think look, key important factors, because defending violence sometimes not the solution. Yeah, and all it does is just create more hatred. Education is key. Engagement is key. Yeah, speaking to them. Like I said, a lot of them are working class poor. A lot of the Muslims are working class and poor. We're just being manipulated, living side by side, while the elite, they're comfortable. They're not going to get, they're kind of like places of worship or houses destroyed. It's the poor areas where the poor people are living side by side. That engagement, that education. And key thing is, I am sure they don't really understand Islam properly. If they understand Islam, look, racism. Do we judge a person because of their color? Allah tells us in the Quran, what does Allah say in Surah Rum? In the creation of the heavens and the earth, the different languages you speak, the different shades that you have is a sign of my greatness. We look at others and see what? Allah's greatness. That Allah created the Chinese, and Allah created, people from West Africa and East Africa and North Africa and the Middle East and the Caribbean and the British Isles and so on.
Yeah, and with that, different foods. I think someone was making a joke about it on TikTok about, what, we'll take back our curries. We'll take back this. What are you going to have?
Yeah.
Mash and pies? Like, come on now. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So,
but just look at the mosque now. How many cultures inside the mosque and in the cuisine?
100%.
Just through the mosque, you've kind of like tasted so many different cuisines from across the world. And that's Islam. So that education and engagement. Okay. I think in terms of key thing is, the worry is when Muslims, and this was happening during the Gaza, I think 2011. Yeah. The Gaza kind of like protests and stuff. Muslims got heavy sentences. Yeah. So, this is something that we got to be careful of. You start protesting, you start defending, and suddenly, okay, you know what? You're getting 6, 7 years, 8 years. You're a youngster. You got a future. No, that's policing. Yeah. So engaging with the police for the police force to do their work. When it comes to you have no choice and you're being targeted, your mosque is being targeted, your place of worship is being targeted, and you got no option. Yeah, that's when your Muay Thai skills. Yeah.
You stand your ground.
You stand your ground. You defend yourself. Yeah, that's it.
I think another angle on that though is that no matter how much you try on certain things, some people always be how they are though. I think, remember, England has had the racist issue for centuries. Yeah. America's had the racist issue for centuries. Europe, in essence, has had the racist issue for years. It's nothing new. And you could even say some other countries, to be fair, have the racism
But
issue.
different now, Akhi.
A lot different.
Yeah. Why? Why do you think I'm saying that?
It's a lot different now than years ago.
100%.
Possibly.
Why? What do you think I'm saying that for?
What's the reason you would say it's different now than years ago?
Big difference.
I would say it's based on the immigration and all of that though. I would say it's based on all of that.
Akhi, look at the number of white brothers and sisters taking Shahada. Big difference. That wasn't there 5-10 years ago. Last year, we probably got about 100 Shahadas in the masjid from white brothers and sisters. Now
Why
remember,
they're becoming Muslim.
Okay, yeah, it's a discussion. But remember, these brothers and sisters have got relatives that are non-Muslims. They got nephews and nieces that are non-Muslims. They got friends and neighbors who are non-Muslims. Dynamics have changed greatly. Their reason is different. If you ask, sometimes it's us. Because remember, I was just telling one of the brothers now, I said, look, especially with me, because I see myself as, okay, you're like a doctor, as an imam. Yeah, when you come to the doctor, what do you come with?
An issue, a symptom,
illnesses and problems. So the doctor's diagnosing. He's not going to tell you the good stuff. He said, bro, you got to stop this, you got to stop smoking, you got to stop eating, you got to exercise. If you want to be healthy. So because I'm looking at the problems. So I'm addressing the problems. They come from an outside perspective. I think we say Muslims are so kind. Muslims are so loving. Muslims share. Muslims have unity. Yeah, we see a sense of brother and sister. So they're seeing the positives that we do have, which maybe I sometimes
You don't see.
I don't see because I'm blurred. You understand? Yeah, Gaza. Yeah, that's been a big issue. The Palestinian resistance, the Palestinian steadfastness, their faith. over 40,000 now murdered. Wait a minute, these people haven't lost their faith in Islam. That's been a factor. You know, so those things, family. Yeah, with our shortcomings, generally Muslims with their weaknesses, they keep the family structure.
They have a sense of unity.
Yeah.
So with regards to obviously the whole racism issue, the point I was just trying to make is, I think no matter how good you are and no matter how many education you do for some people though, there will always be ignorant people.
True.
You have that within a Muslim community, you have that in any community. There will always be that small group, and in the grand scheme of things, when you actually look at it, it wasn't a lot of people. I get
100%.
they done. So when you put into, it's a minority few who are loud, and maybe the news is jumping on it more than it needs to.
And you know, the minority are probably all going to different places together. It's such a small minority. Because even in those cities, there's been counter protests.
Yeah.
Walthamstow, how many turned out?
10,000.
18,000.
18.
But that's London. But even the other cities, Stockport and others, there's been counter protests. A lot of non-Muslims have come out. So it's a minority, very small minority. But saying this, you're right. It's going to be, shaitan is there. Yeah. So there's always going to be those you disagree. But at the same time, what you do have to say is, we have to sometimes agree to disagree and live side by side. Not everybody's going to be lovey-lovey. Yeah. There's going to be some times where you just can't get along with certain people. But you know what? Okay, it's life.
I was listening to an LBC, was it this morning or something like that, talking about it. Some guy called Ali, and he was saying that some like higher middle class people have been writing into the newspaper saying they feel like they need to leave the country now. And
Middle class Muslims.
Middle class Muslims.
Okay.
I think even Hamza Yusuf wrote something saying, you know what, kids,
which Hamza Yusuf?
The one in Scotland.
Oh, okay.
Kids feel scared, etc., etc. So obviously you're an imam in a mosque. Do you sense people being scared in this local area, or even other people telling you that they're scared? Like, what's the atmosphere? Someone might ask.
Look, that lady that called, yeah, she's from a local church, and she's scared for Muslims. Yeah. So that's a non-Muslim feeling, okay, yeah, Muslim community is being targeted. I think that sense of fear is there, but remember, we've been through this. 9/11, Muslims have been targeted. 7/7, Muslims being targeted. You know, there's been so many kind of like incidents.
Yeah.
We're always under the spotlight. So this is not something which is new. So one positive thing is the Muslim community is so resilient. Yeah, resilient, confident. Our sisters, you know, you have to advise to say, look, you know what? Don't go out too much, you know, out of care and love. They're confident. They wear their hijab because the world is everywhere. There's something going on. You got to live your Islam. And Islam is also a religion of, look, confident and proud and our trust and reliance in Allah. But I don't hear that more from a lot of Muslims. I don't hear that.
You don't hear the fear aspect. I don't as well. I was going to say that when I was listening to it, I'm thinking, maybe there's some middle class people that we don't meet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we're from the ghetto.
Yeah, true. This is the thing where we are
different.
Yeah,
but I think there are maybe some people that live in certain places that are maybe surrounded by a lot of white people. They might feel a bit, but I don't. You know what? We've traveled around a bit in London and the UK. And the point I was probably going to bring up was that time again. I always bring up, and we always kind of bring up the Cornwall situation. You know, and I think it's good to kind of tell the story as that we went to Cornwall. And I think it was 30, 40 of us.
It's about 40 of us.
40 of us.
7-8 cars, man.
7-8 cars. We went up there.
Minibuses and stuff, yeah.
And when we got there, obviously, I think we hired bikes.
We hired bikes in the city centre.
Yeah, that's it. We hired bikes and started riding around in Cornwall Centre. I remember we've never been Cornwall. And it was black. We was mixed.
We were all mixed. Dawood was with us, remember? Dawood. So it was a mix. But the interesting thing was, so we went into Sainsbury's, bought some stuff, you know, riding bikes around, playing football. When we were playing football, anyway, by the way, everybody you pass, so good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you?
Hello.
You're okay. Then we started playing football. Remember, there's like 40. So he got about 20 against 20. And we just see a crowd just watching. Then there was like a Muslim family, a husband, wife, and the kids. They came. They said, you know what? The whole town is talking about you. We went into Sainsbury's, they were the family, and they're talking about you guys. Anybody we meet, Muslims, in a positive, because they're saying, we haven't seen youngsters, because some got thobes, diverse, young, like this, and happy. It's positive.
It's positive. So that's the point I was just trying to show, that sometimes as human beings, and the news, remember the news is a negative show.
Yeah.
Like you rarely see the news talk about positive stuff, bro. The whole point of the news is to sell you negative things. And sadly, the nature of human beings is we look for bad news. We don't really look for good news. Do you get what I mean? We tend to look more for negative than we tend to look for good. And so the news knows this. And hence why the news is still around till today. It's because they sell you bad things. But that just shows you we went all the way 7 hours out of here.
Yeah.
Hardly any Asian, black, anyone. And it was positive, respectful,
Few
nice.
Muslims.
Few Muslims.
Yeah, few Muslims. And they were loving, respectful. Exactly. So that's my point. You know what? Sometimes even the media spin the negative side.
100%.
Look, the protest that you were at, okay, I would say what? 80%?
80% was white.
Yeah? Non-Muslim. You didn't come to the Wednesday rally that we had.
No, in
that was in
Luton.
Lewisham Clock Tower. Look, I started with saying Assalamu alaikum. I heard Wa alaikum salam. Assuming, because such a loud response, most people are saying it. Okay, Wa alaikum salam. They know it's a Muslim greeting. Okay, I said, look, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say takbir. You have to say Allahu Akbar. God is great. I think that resonated in Lucia. Allah, takbir, Allahu Akbar. They don't have to say this. So I think also we as Muslims can't be, because that's another, what you call it, agenda, hide away, and keep your Islam come like private. No, that's not the solution.
I think though we are doing far better than other cultures and religions when it comes to intermixing. I'll tell you, for example, in prison, I was saying it because we went out to eat yesterday, me, Zay, and all of us was chatting.
I heard. You left me out.
And now we tried to call you, but you're busy, Shaq. So don't even want to try that one, yeah? And I was mentioning inside, there's such a high understanding and mix of Muslims that non-Muslims use Muslim words.
Yeah.
So you see non-Muslims going, yo, ak. He's not Muslim. He's saying to you, yo, akhi. You know what I'm trying to say to you, which means obviously my brother. Akhi means my brother. And we use it with each other like akhi. So you see non-Muslims going around saying, yo, ak. Inshallah, tomorrow man's going to catch you this. And do you get what I mean? And so that shows you, even in prison, even outside of prison, that the Muslim culture is definitely engaging enough for you to be saying those words. If he wasn't engaging, Wallahi, how many people say Wallahi? You see a non-Muslim kid saying to another kid, say Wallahi, because they know they're serious.
I've seen a group of 6-7 kids playing this. Was it Pound Up or something?
Yeah, Pound Up.
Against the wall. Wallahi, man, what was that?
Gambling. But it shows you that it's engaging. It's not like other cultures that we don't need to mention that are in their own little communities and no one goes. No, but I think Muslims are actually out there. Do you know what I mean? And that's what's kind of also promoting many people becoming Muslims, because it's not a hidden way of life. People are wearing their phobes or they wear normal clothes or whatever they wear, and they engage in high places of finance or in business or entrepreneurship, football.
And that though, it's a positive, but some see that as a negative. You understand? That's why sometimes, wait a minute, everybody else, well, they're not doing this. Maybe other faiths, religions, where the Muslims, they're out there. Footballers are making sujood. People, they say Wallahi, they say Assalamu alaikum. The ladies wear hijab and jilbab and abayas. So those who want to hate,
will hate.
Yeah, they hate more. Yeah, exactly.
So how are we finishing the racism topic today? Are we saying it's such a massive issue that it needs looking at? Are we saying it's an issue, but it needs measured kind of responses? Because that's what I'm kind of feeling. It's an issue, but I don't think it's as bad as it one used to be. And even what's happened right now isn't that bad, but you know,
I think one is Islam is against racism. Yeah, Shane says it. Shane said a few times, you know, cut anybody's skin, what's the color of your blood? Red. Anybody, wherever you're coming from, that's if you've got the same blood. Yeah, so Islam, statements in the Quran, statements of Prophet Muhammad, we're against it. Number two, you mentioned it, education is key. Yeah, and engagement with anybody. Yeah, even with the far right. You want to have a discussion about Islam? Come. Yeah, there's nothing. We're not hiding, like you said, whether it's wallahi, whether it's Assalamu alaikum, Allahu Akbar, we're not hiding our Islam. Yeah, so come, talk, find out what you misunderstand, because this is from Allah, from God. It's beautiful. Yeah, and number three, it's like you said, it's not as bad as before, but for those who are vulnerable and weak, remember, we might be speaking about we're in Lusham. As Muslims, we got non-Muslim friends, we mix. But for others, it might be a single parent sister who's wearing hijab, struggling. She's around a lot of non-Muslims. Yeah, it's a small Muslim community in a particular part of England. Not many Muslims. The mosque is very small. They might feel vulnerable. So I think, yeah, we need to take that into consideration as well.
Cool. I think we've covered as much as we can on that topic. Let us know if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, any points, put it down in the comments. We'll catch you on the next one. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.